all so much for coming out to the first session. I'm Miriam Langer, and I will be the panel chair for this session, Check-ins from the Edge. I'm really excited about it, and I'm not just wearing the glass to show off and kind of be an idiot, although those things matter. I thought it would be appropriate for this panel for me to tweet it via glass, document it via glass, since all of our panelists today are actually talking about live check-ins, live social media, that kind of thing for their projects, and I'm really excited about it. So just to let you know, the format is pretty standard. We're going to have a 20-minute presentation by our panelists, followed by up to 10 minutes of Q&A, at which point we'll do our tech switch and move on to the next panelist. So we'll go ahead. Okay, glass. Take a picture.
Smile.
Doesn't want to be responsive. Okay, glass. Take a picture. Thank you. All right, so it's a little slow, like all of us on this Saturday morning. All right, I'll turn it over to our first panelist.
Okay, welcome everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vivian Kohlhager. I'm the director and CEO of Balboa Park Online Collaborative, and I'm here with our UI UX programmer designer, Wesley Hsu. We're going to talk about creating mobile gallery guides with location-based technology. Over the last year, we've been experimenting with localized Wi-Fi chips that is not out in the market yet, and so we're going to demonstrate 2 projects that we've been using it with. So for those of you who are not familiar with Balboa Park Online Collaborative, we are in beautiful Balboa Park, which is just north of downtown San Diego. We have over 80 different cultural institutions in the park with about 13 major visiting institutions there. And we were started about almost 5 years ago as a project under a foundation. It came out of discussions with the institutions, and what the foundation realized was that most of the institutions did not have any web support or IT support, let alone staff that deal with those specialties. So we were created to help support the organizations in the park. And so our mission is to really help them with their technology initiatives and really help them connect with their audiences with technology. And this is our vision. How do we do this? We do this really by really working collaboratively with the organizations, and they range from staff members of 1 to over 100, so wide range. And what we do is we are addressing common needs through technology and really providing access to the rich cultural resources there for the public. We really promote collaboration and partnership, and that's one of the things we want to do is create a platform for that. And we want to help prepare them to meet the audience's needs for the 21st century. So the first project is with the Tim Kim Museum of Art. It's a wonderful museum that specializes in European art. It has about 40 artworks in their permanent collection. And one of the interesting things about this particular museum is that there is no wall text in their galleries at all. So they just recently, earlier this year, created a brand new strategic plan. And in that strategic plan was they wanted to pursue more technology, and they wanted to engage their audiences and be able to provide content for them. So we started working with them on something called the Place Sticker Project. We felt that this would be a perfect solution for some of the challenges that they had. The way the Place Sticker works is basically it's a Wi-Fi chip that is put near the artwork. A person walks near it with a smartphone, an Android smartphone, and then they will pick up that signal, and that signal is connected to content. The first iteration was for indoor use only. As I said, it's Android-based, and it can be associated with specific content for an object. You can also have any type of content. It could be video, it could be audio, it could be text, it could be a coupon, whatever you want it to be. The collaboration was between the Balboa Park Online Collaborative, the Information Services International Dentsu, which is in Japan. They're the Place Sticker makers. and the National Institute of Information Communication and Technology, the Pacific Rim Undergraduate Experience Program at UC San Diego, and the Tim Kim Museum of Art. And I'll explain how this partnership all worked. So the University of San Diego, California has an undergraduate program where they send students overseas to work on technology projects during a summer. They have partnered with the National Institute of Information Community Technology for a number of years, and NICT becomes the host site for the student. And that they have mentors, on-site mentors there who are technology experts that help the students with the project. How we got involved was NICT's, one of the partners there, was really interested in how to use technology to preserve cultural technology. And so we were sort of connected through mutual friends, and because of that, we developed this relationship where we hire students to help us prototype a particular project for the museums. And it's a great collaboration because everyone is sharing resources, and it really brings the cost down for the museums themselves. So I'll explain how the resources are distributed. So the students are, we cover airfare, housing, and stipend for the students. So the airfare is covered by the museum, the housing is covered by the host institution, and the stipend is covered by the university itself. And the student receives credit for this project. And as I said, they work for a whole summer on it full-time at a host institution. Staff resources are contributed by all the partners, and then the company ISID was the one who actually provided all the devices free of charge and the API. And for them, their part of the reasons they became a partner is because they wanted to test out their product. They had this product, they had an idea for a product, they had no application for it. And so they really wanted to be able to apply it, see how it works, and create iterations of it. And then the museum was looking for technology and solutions but had no access to it. And so this was how it became a great partnership. And I am just going to show you a very brief video about how it works, and I'll explain. So when you come into the museum, the first thing you do is you'll scan a QR code to download the app, or you can download it at home. Then you walk near the artwork. There are artworks on the app itself, and when you walk near it, it pulsates and lets you know that you're near it, and it will bring up the content. So it's very simple. The Wi-Fi devices are actually hidden in the corners of the room behind stools, and you just need to be within a 6-meter radius of the Wi-Fi chips. And they can move with the artwork. So if the artwork travels or is taken down, you take the chip away, and you bring it back when it's back in the room. So it's very simple. Part of our goals was to prototype this Android Wi-Fi chip. We also wanted to connect museums with new technologies. That's always been a goal of ours at BPOC. And then it also provided companies with application testing environments. And then for the students, they're getting real-world experience. Some of the challenges is meeting the goals of the different partners, communication, because we were working with a Japanese company. The API was actually in Japanese. And then learning with our partners, how flexible are they? How willing are they to experiment? And also trust. They have to trust us to understand that this is brand new technology. We may not know if it's going to work, but they have to trust that we're going to work on this together and figure out some solutions. Working with students and partners, of course, also is a longer timeline. So, and I'm going to turn it over to Wes, who will talk about the second project.
Hello, everyone. I'm the UX and UI designer at BPOC. I'm going to talk a little about the Japanese Friendship Garden project. So, as Vivian mentioned, the program is a continuing collaboration with Japanese companies. So we sent this summer we sent Jesus Rios to Japan. He's now a 4th-year computer science student at UC San Diego. And so we sent him from San Diego to Osaka, Japan, where NICT is located. And so he was closer to ISID, so if we had technical questions, we'd be able to answer them, or they would be able to answer them. Now, before I talk about the place sticker project, there's a couple interesting things that are worth mentioning about the Japanese Friendship Garden specifically, and why we decided to go with them as the client for this next project. So the Japanese Friendship Garden recently, just a few months ago, recently expanded to the lower canyon that's right next to the Japanese garden. So they went from being a pretty small garden to now 11 acres. They're still working on finishing up the space, but it's opened up and it's much bigger now. So while Balboa Park has pretty good Wi-Fi coverage, because of the nature of the geography, Wi-Fi coverage doesn't reach down into the canyon, and also cell phone coverage is a little bit spotty down there. There's also the fact that it being a garden, there's certain aesthetics that it needs to abide to, so they can't just have signage everywhere saying, you know, this is this plant, or this is, you know, this is how old these koi are. So a lot of users have questions, and they need to consult the brochure, or they need to talk to docents about information. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting place to try using the place sticker technology, because then you can have users get content without interfering with the environment. And also, it's an outdoor venue, so we have to worry about issues of you know, rain and temperature change, moisture, because you know, San Diego's weather is so intense. So actually, this year we got 3 of these solar-powered place stickers, which is essentially a big solar panel and a watertight box behind it. And you open it up, pop one of these things inside. So instead of it being powered by the battery, it's just, oops, this device by itself plugged into there. And there's a circuit board and battery inside that it's powered by. So it's low maintenance. One of the benefits of this is you just have it there. You don't have to come in and have someone change out the battery every 6 weeks is about how long the batteries last. And they're waterproof. So what we ended up doing is, rather than just having users, you know, come in, use the app to get information when they reach one of the stops along the way, is to turn it into a game. This was one of Jesus's ideas, which we thought was pretty brilliant. It's more of an Easter egg hunt rather than just, you know, you come up and you find information. So we picked the spots, and rather than explaining it, I think it's better to just give you an idea of how it works with the video. So as you saw, there were a series of stops. There's a series of stops, and you're given clues along the way, which are actually haikus that we had visitors submit, and we ended up having 170 haikus for all of the stops, and we picked the best ones, and then people whose haikus were featured in the app also got some rewards. And then you're given the haiku, and a painting of the image or a section of the image, and then audio, depending on whether the stop had audio or not. And then once you complete all of them, you give them some incentive to complete all of them, you get a coupon. And we did some tests in the garden to check how these would work in outdoor settings, because this is the first time we've used these in outdoor settings, which are much wider, much more space than in a gallery. And there's a variable you can set to determine how sensitive you want it to be, because essentially these are broadcasting up to 32 steps away. Ended up being about 32 steps for me, someone with my stride. And you basically just tell the app how far you want it to go. And so in the outdoor setting, we found that middle was about ideal for the Japanese garden. And so the project itself will be installed soon. Right now, as of last night actually, we just got all the funding we need, or we met our goal on our Kickstarter campaign. And hopefully we can get a little bit more, because it would be great to get more funding for the actual process of installing this app and all the devices in the Japanese Friendship Garden.
So what have we learned from this particular project, which actually went through 2 phases over 2 summers? We learned that actually collaboration actually leads to innovation. When you get a room of people with very different backgrounds, we learn different things from each other. We learn that, oh, maybe we can try this idea. I never even thought about that from a museum perspective. Maybe from a technical side, we can create this amazing way of handling this issue. We found new ways of working together. We also learned access to new technologies on the museum side. For the technical side, it was interesting. Our main partner wanted to learn more about each artwork. That was great. He wanted to learn more about the history and who painted it and why it was painted and why it was in the artwork. So it became this a really amazing dialogue and conversation that we would have during our meetings that extended beyond the project itself. It also brought low-cost opportunities to prototype ideas. One of the things we're really working on with our institutions is a lot of times they'll come to us and say, we want you to put together this technology, but they haven't really thought it through. And so one of the things we want to try and have them do is really think about prototyping, experiment. Even if it's just a paper prototype, it gives you some ideas of what will be successful and what will not work before actually implementing and going into a long production cycle with programming. So this is a way where we can prototype ideas beyond paper and actually test it with users. And one of the great things for us is developing future professionals. We're always on the lookout for programmers and digital media experts, and to have students who are working with us, we start to see that potential, and we start to also get new ideas that we haven't even thought about, because again, when you're brand new, you have all these ideas, and it's great to be able to have that dialogue. So those are some of the things that we've learned from our experience.
Hi everybody, I'm Matt Davidson. Pardon me. I work at a technology company called BVO2, hence all the orange. And we worked on this wonderful thing called the Beluga Cam. And of course, everyone's asking, what's a Beluga Cam? And we're going to get into all that stuff. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is it? It's sort of an introduction to the Beluga Cam. So why, where, what, kind of the details of it. Then we're going to get into the curating live content stuff. So the risks and the challenges that we had to face with this sort of project, and then how it fared in the Museum of Nature, who is the partner that we worked with, and then the lessons we learned from it, and then we'll get to questions, and if we have time, I have a surprise treat for you from the project, but I can't tell you what it is yet, because otherwise it'll ruin everything. Worst comes to worst, we can play that in the background while we're doing questions before the technology changes. We'll see if we have time. So who are the players? Who are the people that we're working with here? We have the Museum of Nature in Ottawa. We have Arctic Watch, which is this wonderful lodge up near Resolute Bay, and then BVO2. So that's the company I work for, and we're again a technology company. So introduction to the Beluga Cam. Sorry, we're a digital creative agency, even better. So introduction to the Beluga Cam. Why? Why would you do this? And I think, I could explain, and I will explain, but I'm going to show you some photos and maybe a little bit of video that explains why we would do this. So that's the first photo. I don't know if you can tell, but those are all beluga whales. There's some more photos of beluga whales at this particular spot. And this photo really gives a sense of how close you can get to those beluga whales. And the next one's going to be actually this, I believe, is a video I can play if I click. Yes. So, let's see. So this is audio. Despite the music, the actual recordings are audio recorded at Arctic Watch. And this will kind of talk to you about some details. And then I'll kind of recap and explain these specific details after the fact. This is all recorded there on the beach at Arctic Watch. Again, we get back to why create this project. You saw in the video, every year 2,000 beluga whales converge on this bay in the high Arctic. That's 2,000 total, roughly 200 a day. The whales socialize, and it's right where the Arctic Ocean meets the Cunningham River. So it's this warm water where the river comes out and the cold Arctic Ocean meet. And the beluga whales come and they play, and it's sort of like a spa. They rub up against the ground and they rub their skin off. In fact, it's being documented right now by some folks from from the Mystic Aquarium, and they're down there, or they're there over the summers documenting the beluga behavior, because they've never actually been able to document beluga behavior like this in the wild before. So this spa happens every year during Arctic summer, so that's mid-July, maybe between July 4th and August 5th. It's a very narrow window, Arctic summer. And it's been documented by BBC for Frozen Planet and by National Geographic and a whole bunch of other high-level organizations. So this spot is quite wonderful. So we're coming back to why create this project. It's very cost prohibitive to get up there. It costs, a week up at this lodge is somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000. So it's a lot of money to get up there, mostly because it's so far away. So that kind of leads us to the next question. Where are we talking about that it's so expensive to get to? So, in the words of the friendly giant, look up, look way up, and you're going to see this little dot on the tip of Canada. So, if we zoom in on this a little bit, what you're going to see is that little inlet, and that is where where Arctic Watch is seated, right on the side of that river delta, and that's Arctic Watch Lodge. It's a summer lodge, believe it or not. And it actually gets quite nice there, maybe 14, 20 degrees C. So it's on the Cunningham Inlet. It's on the northernmost tip of this thing called Somerset Island, even though it's not really an island. It's 500 kilometers above the Arctic Circle, which is really quite high. And it's at this lodge called Arctic Watch, which I've kind of already spoken about a bit. It's at 74 degrees north, and for reference, we're at 45 degrees north right now. So each degree is 100 nautical miles, which is, I believe, 1.2 regular miles, so it's a fairly long way. And the whales literally swim so close to the shore that you're only maybe 20 feet away most of the time, as you saw in the video and the photos. And it's close enough to hear the pops and clicks and hear their communication. It's really fantastic to be on the beach and feel and sense that. And that's why we wanted to bring it to people. So what is a beluga camera? Because obviously, that's the big question. And it's this thing we kind of had to put together. So that's me. Believe it or not, that's me on my birthday on July 14th, up at the lodge. And you can see it's snowing in my waders and my jacket and everything. And that's with 2 pieces of the Beluga camera. So I'll jump to the next page. So it's a solar-powered, satellite-fed webcam, and it feeds a signal up to the cloud. Once it's in the cloud, we're able to process and stream that video back into the Museum of Nature. So it's displayed on the screens in the Museum of Nature, but it's also on their website at nature.ca. So there's a whole lot of moving parts. There's solar cells. There's a big solar power converter. You saw there's like a fairly large solar array. Luckily, we're dealing with Arctic summer, so it's 24 hours of daylight. So the solar array, there's a satellite dish and modem, and I don't know if anybody here has tried to set up a satellite dish before. It's one of the most frustrating things to do in the world. There's a very narrow window where those dishes are on the correct angle, especially when you're that high up on the top of the world. You're basically aiming them into the ground because it's pointing at a satellite that's over the equator. And then a high-end security camera. Also, I'm not an expert at setting up satellite dishes, so it was quite a frustrating task, it turned out. So a high-end security camera is how we did it. So it uses power over Ethernet, so we didn't have to have a computer as the sort of in-between. The camera actually broadcasts the signal directly. And then a cloud streaming server using, we used AWS, and then some software called Wowza. So then you can kind of get into all this technical stuff. We had the server had a bad weather cutover plan, so if the weather happened to turn sour and we couldn't broadcast a signal anymore because rain stops Wi-Fi, or rain stops satellite up there, of course, we were able to cut over to pre-recorded video and show pre-recorded video instead of live. And then you can see down in the bottom right corner, this was the server structure that we set up using this software called Wowza running on AWS. And if anybody wants to get into the super technical details, just come talk to me after and I can kind of explain it because it's a whole lot of technical jargon. And then lots and lots of hard work. That's me waist deep in the Arctic Ocean and on one side, and I'll get into that in a second. And that's me, you can see the tide has come up because we set this in a place where the tide would fill around it. And you can, trying to get this thing up and running. So we spent probably 3 weeks setting it up. I spent 2 weeks personally knee-deep in the Arctic Ocean, working on this thing. And I'm going to get into some details into a sec about how it came together, but what was the final product. And you can see there's the display screens in the Museum of Nature, and that's the Museum of Nature's website with the wild Beluga camera. And then they had some screens up, or some display slides up that explained what the final product was and kind of explained the details of everything I just kind of brought off to you. So let's talk about curating live content, because I think that's really what everybody came here to talk about, not what the Beluga camera is. So typically in the world that I've worked with, and we've worked with museums for 10 years at BVO2, exhibits are planned 3 to 5 years ahead of time, maybe less. And it's difficult to plan for live content that far in advance, usually, artifacts and objects. And the Beluga Cam concept really bridged the web and digital with curated exhibits. We brought those 2 teams together because we were showing web and digital information, but we were showing it in a curated exhibit. So this particular thing, the Beluga camera, was put together 2 months before it went on display. And it sat within the RBC Blue Water Gallery, which was a previously curated exhibit. That exhibit had been curated, I think, almost 5 years ahead of time, 3 to 5 years ahead of time. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It opened in 2010.
Yes, it opened in 2010. So it had been around for a little bit, and we just, we sort of commandeered these screens to show the Beluga camera. And it had many risks associated with it. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into, because live content has a ton of risks. So what are those risks? Weather. Weather is number one. Flying equipment 3,400 kilometers away is a pretty big deal. The equipment had to fit together like a puzzle, and that's what I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of finagling trying to get cameras to work and solar equipment to work. There's very little room for error. We didn't have much time. The next question is, where will the belugas show up? I mean, this mouth of the river is 5 kilometers wide, and there's 4 or 5 different spots that they could possibly show up. And we have 3 tons worth of equipment. So we have to kind of guess the right bay that they're going to come to and hope that that's the one they show up in. Luckily, the folks who own Arctic Watch have been there for 10 years, so they kind of can predict what looks like the mouth of the river that is most appealing to beluga whales, and they were right. And then from the museum side, press releases and timing, trying to get the public on board with this and get people excited and ramped up while we're trying to get this thing set up 3,400 kilometers away. And then making sure the software is working properly. Not to mention, it's a really hard to test situation. How do you test for the high Arctic, for the weather conditions, for the extremes, for all those things? It's really almost impossible to test for. And then I'm gonna say it again, is weather. And you're gonna hear why in a second. So a big shout out. I want to shout out to Anne. She's here on the panel, but she was really our champion here at the Museum of Nature. You can follow her at twitter.com/nature_AB. And she was our champion at the Museum of Nature, and she's who we spoke to on a regular basis with how this project was coming together and how things were moving and if it was going to get live anytime soon. So let's get into the challenges of live content. And this is really where things start to get exciting. So as we're working on this, I mean, it's, the press releases are going out and it's getting more and more exciting. So for the first time in 10 years, the whales showed up late. They were 2 weeks late. They weren't anywhere. And no one knew why. They just weren't there. They hadn't showed up. And I mean, there were predictions that it was because the ice in the bay was there too long and it didn't push out, and so the whales stayed away. There's all these reasons, We had to guess again which of the 4 or 5 inlets the beluga would take to, and I kind of spoke to that. We were actually right, which was good, but it was a guess and it was terrifying. Technology can't always keep up, so our satellite feed, we found out once we got it up and running, that far north couldn't support the bandwidth required to stream video, or it wasn't allotted the bandwidth. So we pulled some strings with people we knew, and we got some high ups at Telesat, which is the kind of a Crown Corp telecommunications company, and they opened us up some more bandwidth so that we could actually get this thing up and running. Unfortunately, you can't plan for weather, and that's kind of what I highlighted in my last slide. So the kind of so I'm going to get into that. Initially, we were able to really get this thing up and running, but I think this slide kind of highlights it the best. That is me, waist deep in the Arctic Ocean, pretty far away from anybody. As you can see, there's nothing but white caps and ocean, and this is the day before something pretty bad happened. So the day before the feed was going to go live, we had a pretty tremendous storm. So I'm going to actually read a quote from one of the Webbers, and these folks own the lodge, and again, they've been there for 10 years. So this quote is, 2 days ago, we suffered gale force winds at Arctic Watch. I have not seen such winds in more than 7 years. A strong 90-kilometer-an-hour wind battered Arctic Watch and the shoreline where the tower was installed. During the storm, the solar array and camera towers were washed away into the bay and completely destroyed. So our 2 or 3 ton equipment was literally picked up and thrown almost 3 kilometers away to the side of the bay. It was destroyed the day before we were all set to go live. And as you can see in that photo, I was certainly trying to get it to go live. This is the storm just starting. I got in trouble for doing this too. I'll get into details. I'm wearing hip waders to stay dry, and I wasn't wearing a life jacket. And if those swells had come over my hip waders, then I'd be washed in the Arctic Ocean by myself in 2-degree water, so maybe 20 minutes before you die. So let's talk about the Museum of Nature a little bit. So, needless to say, we destroyed this thing. But luckily, there are some really positive notes to come out of this, and that's why I'm going to finish on the Museum of Nature, because the destruction is just the exciting part. So the Museum of Nature used the Beluga camera as, it used it as a big draw. They used it as a way to get people into the museum itself, as well as use the web properties. They really promoted it on social media and on the blog, and you can see on their website. So a week before the Beluga camera was going to go live, the screens in the blue water gallery there you saw me standing next to started showing the really high quality beluga footage, like you saw in the video earlier, kind of to get people hyped up for what was about to come. And then, of course, with the destruction of everything, we were able to actually recover 2 to 3 hours of beluga video, and that we ended up showing looping on the screens there. So, unfortunately, it wasn't live, and we had to change a bit of the wording and all that stuff. But the kind of silver lining around this is that this final pre-recorded video, it ran for 6 to 8 months, which is, it was planned to be up for only 2 to 3. And that was at the decision of the director of exhibits. So it was so popular, people loved it. This video that we had so much that it actually ran for 2 to 3 months extra, even though we destroyed all the equipment. And I almost thought it was a failure. And so despite all these challenges, it was deemed successful, which is pretty exciting. So this, again, you can see is the final product. There's me standing next to the screen, and there's the website where you can see it, and I'll show you those links after. So what were the lessons that we took out of this? Because really, we were very clear about the whole process. We were sending videos back to the museum, who was sending videos out the whole time, explaining why things weren't live yet and what was going on, and we were almost live blogging the whole experience. So what were the lessons learned with live content? Salvage what you can and keep pushing, because you never know what's going to stick. Our 2 to 3 hour video loop was actually relatively successful, even though it was so awash with destruction. Tell the story of the process, especially when you're working with live content. Keeping the audience engaged as things develop is really important, because then they're connected with that final product. If you keep that audience engaged and they're part of the story of the creation of it, even if it's just reading it, they're going to be more engaged with what that final product is, whatever it is, even if it's a failure. And success has many faces. It isn't always the most obvious one, and that's the kind of the silver lining of the whole thing, is that although it was pretty traumatic and destructive and all that stuff, we managed to actually deem this thing a success. And it brought a lot of people in the doors, and people were excited, and it showed an extra long period of time. It brought traffic to the website, social media properties. I mean, it was a hell of a lot of fun to do, not to mention. And we got to go up to the Arctic and try to set up a camera. Okay, so let's get on to questions. And I'm a little early here, I realize. So luckily in the background, I can kind of play this video if you guys have questions. But I'm going to turn off the audio because it's loud. And maybe it's distracting, I don't know. But it's pretty exciting stuff. Or we can just watch it because I have a little bit of extra time. And then we can go to questions after that. I don't know, it's up to you guys. Okay. I have another one cut to Batman exciting movie music, but this one you can hear the actual audio of what we're experiencing. So this is us wading out to the tower. That's the Arctic Ocean. This is after it's gone. So at one moment I actually slipped my footing and started floating away in my dry suit because it was a big bubbly thing. So that's me, trying to get my footing back. So all that's left is 6 batteries, 6 100-pound batteries. So this is, now I'm getting splashed in the face with salt water, getting shocked by the batteries, not to mention. And we're trying to haul these 100-pound batteries back to shore because it's not too safe to leave lead-acid batteries sitting in salt water. So as you can see, that one tower was all that was left, and that was the satellite array. The solar and the camera tower were both literally gone. The camera tower never showed up, and the satellite tower was again 3 kilometers away. So we had to haul these things, almost 1.5 kilometers to shore through cold, freezing salt water. It was pretty exciting. So again, this is some of the video that we were able to share after the fact. Cool. So thank you, everybody, and we can kind of get to questions. And there's some links, too, if you want to read more about this crazy thing. I'm tweeting about this stuff, too. So we have Beluga Cam 2012. That's you can see it at nature.ca. You can see it at our blog, BVO2, and then art2watch.ca/blog. All of us were talking about it.
Thank you.
So I'm Ryan Dodge. I'm the social media coordinator at the Royal Ontario Museum, and I've asked Anne to take part with or be with me on this panel because we run similar after-hours events at our museums with similar collections. So, and we do a few similar things to try to activate social during these events. So that's why we're sharing this time. So we just threw this slide in this morning. Anne's brought some swag from her event, some t-shirts, some hats and stuff. So share some selfies with us with the hashtag, and we'll hand those out after.
Great fish t-shirt.
Friday Night Live is our event. It's like I said, it's an after-hours event, and in Toronto, it's become known by the hashtag, so everyone just calls it FNL-ROM now. It started in the spring of 2008, and it's an 8-week series of events. We run 2 per year, in the fall and the spring. And basically what it is we open up the museum from 7 to midnight. We have DJs, we have bands, we have programming in the exhibits, speakers and things like that. The aim of this event is to build connections with an underrepresented audience. It's the 19 to 35 demographic, young urban professionals, people that are heavy social media users and tech savvy. When we started this event, my role did not exist. There was no social media coordination happening at the museum. It was sort of just on the fly. A bunch of us were sharing it. As you can see, it gets busy. So after the first series was over, I began in this new role, and I really wanted, I had been at the museum and had been slightly involved in the event previously, but I really wanted to boost up the activation on social throughout the event. People started Yelp groups to talk about it. People were tweeting without any real interaction with the museum, so I wanted to really switch that up and do something that would just really show that we were listening to the audience and engaging with them. So first I'm going to talk about 3 activations that I tried that didn't really work, just to show you guys some ideas, and then I'll talk about one that really did work. So on the left of the screen there, you'll see we called it an Insta-ROM tour. So we used Instagram, and we had a short, about 30-minute docent tour with about 6 stops. We made it short because we knew that people visited the event in groups and didn't really want to take time to commit to anything that was any length of time. So it was very hard to get people to do stuff at the event. So the prize was a free membership at the end. It was very unscientific. I just picked someone who shared the most photos throughout the tour at the end. And we ran it for 4 weeks out of the 8 weeks. And the first time we did it, these are shots from the first time, we had about 4 or 5 people show up to do the whole tour. And then we got less and less people as we did it throughout the week. And our Friday Night Live events have a theme each week, and the tour is connected with the theme in some way. So this week we did it, it was Canadiana, so we did it in the Canadiana Gallery. The second activation you see in the middle here, this is Aaron Kerr, one of our educators, and we had gallery interpretation tables, usually about 4 of them around the museum. And it was an educator with an object, and on the sign, it's hard to see, but we put the hashtag on there, and we challenged people to go around the museum and find these 4 tables and tweet a fact after they had talked to the educator. And no one really did it. So, you know, we really wanted people to interact with us on a physical level, but also on a social level. And you know, what I've found is that's really hard to do at these events. People are active on social, but they're not following along on the feed. They're, you know, they're logging in, they're checking in to share their experience and not really, you know, following along in the whole feed, in our experience anyway. And then, so the last thing I tried was sort of Where's Waldo, Find Ryan sort of thing. And it was just, you know, I had tried something, you know, pretty specific. I just wanted to open it up and make it really easy for people. And so what I did is I tweeted a photo from our ROM Toronto account of myself with a little, that's a membership in that box, in places throughout the museum, and challenged people to find me, and the first person that found me won a membership. And this didn't really work either. You know, because my job throughout that event is really to run around the museum and you know, tweet and push people to different areas of the museum, I found it hard to be stationary for longer than 5-10 minutes. And this time I only did it once, and I was there for about a half hour, which before someone was watching the feed and found the activation and then found me. The people there on the bottom, they're actually members. The lady in the middle that won, so she just got another year of membership. You know, so from that experience, the people that really manage this event, they always want to do contests through Twitter and through social. And this season, we actually have a Friday Night Live season going on right now. We had one last night. I've really argued against doing contests through social because of these experiences, and they don't work. So those are 3 things that didn't work. I'm going to talk about this one thing that we do that really does work. And this isn't a sales pitch, but I just wanted to show you guys what we're doing that really does work. So we use a service called Cherry Pick, and what it is, it's a web-based service that aggregates photos shared. When it started, it was just Twitter and Instagram, but now it's through across all social networks. And what you do is you set a hashtag and you set the aggregation time, so date and time, and it pulls in photos shared with the hashtag through all social networks. And it even does Vine videos and Instagram videos now. It's really a fantastic service. And basically it's in real time. So there is moderation that you can set. So you can okay the photos before they go live on the photo wall, or you can just have them go on live on the photo wall and then you can take them down after. It takes about 5 seconds from when someone shares it on social for it to show up on the wall. So it really is instant. And you know, for us, it was significant because it was, you know, it was live crowdsourcing during the event, and people could share their experiences with us almost instantly, and we would receive visual feedback on, you know, our programming and what we were doing throughout the event, whether we needed to change something up or, excuse me, or you know, do something different the next week. So this is a shot of, this is probably the biggest wall in our museum. You can see there's a pterosaur in the on the top corner there, just to give you an idea of scale of how big this wall is. We found that the more places we put it, the more people that could see it would interact with it. And I would see people standing around watching the photo wall to see their photo and then take pictures of it. It was really crazy. So you can see here we put it in the main area where the band is, where people are dancing. Get lots of shots of selfies from the dance floor, which are pretty great. So we know that most people use their phone to take pictures. It's almost second nature now. And if they're doing something else, it's usually to tweet during this event. So we wanted to find a way where we could gather all those photos and really make the crowd part of the event, and actually, you know, part of building the event and making it as popular as it is. Just to give you an idea, we're talking about around 3,000 people during that 4 or 5 hour period on a Friday night. So like I said, we placed it throughout the museum. We placed it on, it's web-based, so you just need a Wi-Fi signal or some sort of signal and a projector. We also put it on the screens behind the bar and behind the admission desk. You can see it here on the right-hand side. So people are waiting in line, they're seeing the feed right there. And again, just another shot to give you the scale of how big it is. So not only, there's a few other things that you could do with the photo wall. The photo wall allows you to upload JPEG images or PDF files to that cycle through the photos every 3rd, 5th, 7th, or 10th image. So we used, because of the low light levels, we used a digital version of the map for the event and put it up on the photo wall. Because, as Ann will probably say, people can't scan a QR code in the dark. So we did that as well. And then we broke up the map into specific sections. So this lists where all the bars were. So people it would pop in every we usually did every 5th photo. And then we also had partners. So we promoted our partners as well. We partnered with Halo, which is a taxi app, and they gave us all users a discount if they used our hashtag through the app, just to give people a safe drive home, because there was drinking involved at the event. And then of course we used the opportunity to plug one of our membership levels that fits with the demographic that comes to these events. So it really is a multi-purpose tool that we really took advantage of, and we use it actually for an exhibit. We have an exhibit on right now where we're asking people to share their wildlife photography, and that is displayed in the exhibit as well. So we're using it in different ways. So a little bit about numbers. We ran the photo wall in various places around the museum. This isn't a staged photo, by the way. I took this right from the photo wall. This is someone taking a picture of someone taking a picture of their picture on the photo wall. We get a lot of that. There was a bunch. I was watching the photo wall last night, releasing all the images, and there was a lot last night of people saying, "I'm ROM famous," or, you know, taking a picture of themselves. It was crazy. So we had, in the first series we ran it, we had 947 different unique contributors who shared around almost 2,000 photos. And when you factor in the attendance, it's about a 5% pickup rate. In the spring, the next series, we had slightly higher engagement with the photo wall. And, you know, the numbers for me aren't a huge thing. It's more what people do with it. It's more, you know, what they say about it and how they interact with it. And we really, with this event, we want to make the ROM a social hub of the city. And we feel that this really helps in that endeavor. You can see here, there's another of these guys waited so their photo came up on the wall and then took a picture of themselves standing in front of their photo. You know, just to illustrate, you know, how people want to see their name in lights at one of the largest museums in Canada. And then we also received a lot of feedback from people about it. Here's a little quote from Emma, which just echoes what I'm saying, that, you know, people really value that we're asking them to do this for us and that we're asking them to be a part of the event. The slides will be recorded, so you guys can read that later if you don't want to. And then we actually had Dan shared this, and I didn't know Dan until he shared this, and then I actually talked to him afterwards because he runs a couple of companies, social companies himself, so I wanted to give him get his feedback personally about how we were doing. And it says, the ROM is streaming tweets and Instagram to displays at FNL ROM. Awesome use of crowdsourced content. So thanks, Dan. So that was really quick, but I think I left lots of time for questions, and we're going to hear from Anne now. Thanks, guys.
Hi, so my name is Anne Botman, and I'm head of Web and Digital Initiatives at the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa. And in January 2013, we launched our own version of the Friday night dance party called Nature Nocturne. Ours is a little bit different than what the ROM is doing. We have it on a once-a-month basis, the fourth Friday of the month. And we've had 7 events, well actually 8, there was one yesterday. And the event is about live music, DJs, dancing, we have food and bars. We bring in a variety of art installations, performances, and we do crafts. The objectives for the museum was about creating buzz in the community, reaching this young adult audience, the elusive young adult audience, to generate revenue and to increase attendance. And just recently, I love this picture down here. It was taken in Halloween recently, and it's of 2 jellyfish. It was a really awesome costume. So we know that the audience coming is a particularly social and mobile audience. We have a dedicated website for the event, and 70% of the tickets are sold online through the website. We see that we have twice as much mobile traffic to that part of the website than we do to the regular website, and almost 3 times the social media referrals compared to the rest of nature.ca. And primarily, although it alternates, the top referral sites are Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter. And although we do some promotion in Facebook and Twitter, we certainly don't do it on Reddit. And most of the referrals are coming from outside the museum's influence, which is really nice. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about our experience with mobile engagement and what we tried. So we totally ripped off the ROM's idea for the live photo wall because we had the advantage of doing it after they started. We also did some text messaging trials, and we did a photo challenge. And I really love the shot because it just sums up what mobile is for this event. So we have a fabulous castle-like facility in Ottawa with a main atrium, and we can project the photo wall in this space, and it really is essentially a 2-story high photo wall. People can tweet or Instagram their photos in real time using our hashtag #NatureNocturne. And as Ryan says, the photos change regularly, really quickly, and we found that we've required very minimal moderation. So just to give you a feel of what the screen looks like, That's what's actually projected on our wall. It's a hosted solution from SherryPick. It supports event branding, so you can put your own logos in. You can keep the photo albums, and so we link to them from the microsite after the events and also from social media. There is moderation available, so you can have an app, and while the event's going on, you can check the photos. We found that we don't moderate, we sort of post-moderate. So if we see anything, we'll take it down, but we don't actually do the moderation ahead of time. And we typically have rejected 2 or 3 images per event. You know, it's usually a picture that they've already had on their phone and they tweet it during the event and they haven't taken the shot at the event, so we've got pictures of dogs or other things that you might find on your phone. We haven't had any real trouble with that. There's also contest and voting features within SherryPick, but we haven't had a chance to explore those yet. Oh, and the other thing was the top picture here, again at Halloween. The guy is a social media ninja, and he's with the cloud. So how did the photo wall do? Well, we're in the middle of our 2nd season, and you can see our pickup rate has been increasing. We have about 6% for the first season and 6.5% for the second. In the summer, we weren't expecting to run another event, but we had a special occasion. We had the opportunity to partner with the Canadian Museum of Aviation. They were running a big Star Wars exhibit. And so we partnered with them in the sense that we hosted the Nature Nocturne on that theme, and then we did cross-promotion for it. And it was really popular. Everybody wanted a picture with the Wookiee. So what else did we do? For season 1, at the very beginning, when we were thinking about how to promote the Nature Nocturne, we did some text messaging campaigns. Essentially, by that we mean we were promoting 3 different keywords in various locations, and if you texted those keywords in, you would gain exclusive access to a VIP lounge, which had a dedicated bar and space. Here's an example of one of those lounge areas. And you'd also be on a First to Know mailing list. So the results from those, from that campaign are sort of mixed. We were really hopeful. We were putting the initial keywords on some posters that were in some bars in Gatineau. If you're familiar at all with Ottawa, Ottawa's on a big river, and on the Ottawa side, we didn't seem to have any problem attracting visitation, but on the other side of the river, we always have had problems encouraging people to cross the river to come over. It's a pretty common problem, I think. So we were keen to see if we could get some new audiences from across the river. But as you can see, the results were pretty poor. By far and large, the area we had most success with this campaign was off the website and as well on-site social. It was interesting because it showed us where people were coming from, and that was the local area of Ottawa and Gatineau, but some of the area codes also showed up from Montreal and Toronto, so people were clearly following us from afar. The third activation we tried was the famous QR photo challenge. We had a lot of people wanting to do something with photography because we saw how excited people were with the photo wall, and we wanted to facilitate them to, or encourage them to explore the gallery. And we thought, okay, let's set up a few ideas and have them have little challenges to go into the gallery. So we created 6 different posters with QR codes, and if you scanned the code, you would get a web page with your challenge, like this one that says, give us your best James Cameron shot in the water gallery. And we asked them to tag the pictures and submit them to the photo wall. We got about 36 scans in total, and we think there were about 6 pictures uploaded. So there were some challenges, particularly around the lighting of these posters. The atrium area of the museum is well lit with a lot of glass, and so the team that put up the posters did so in the daylight before the museum closed for the party. When it came time in the evening for people to come in, we realized that the places that they put the posters up were completely the wrong places. They were in the dark, in shadows. They would be not where people would necessarily congregate. So I think that was a big challenge. One of the other things, of course, is the fact that it's a QR code. It puts up this layer, this barrier between the user and the activity, and although it sounds great and it's something we could pitch to the sponsor, it ended up being a barrier. We learned from our lesson from this one, and for a subsequent, although non-social activity we did at the museum, we ended up printing posters and putting them in places where there actually was light. And then the third challenge was actually identifying the photo entries on the wall. The one that you can see here is shot through our big fish tank, which is quite fun. But it wasn't always easy to tell that they were entries. So we think we'll need to do something like have a special hashtag or some other way of encouraging people to tag their photos. We know that they're entries. And like I said, Sherry Pick seems to support voting and photo contests, so I think we'll try and explore that again in the coming season. But clearly, you know, this sort of quick and dirty testing, because it wasn't hard to do this, pays off. So where are we going next? We'd like to continue to improve the mobile experience on our microsite. We have a responsive website for the most part, but I think given the high percentage of mobile users, we really want to target that well. We've also started a new Twitter account specifically dedicated to Nature Nocturne, and we want to see how social media impacts on website visits and ticket sales, and if there is any relationship there. And as I mentioned before, we'd like to do some more contests with the photo wall, because that seems to be something that the sponsors, and taking photography in general, is very popular in these activities. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'd just like to remind everybody that if they tweet a selfie mentioning Ryan and myself, you could win a t-shirt. Thank you.